Welcome to the Newbieverse, boys and girls. In today's episode, pardon the interruption style, Newbieverse. What's going on, everybody? How are you? Happy New Comic Book Day Eve. Huge things happening tomorrow, and maybe we should touch on it just a little bit. Miss Marvel tomorrow. It just got a 98% Rotten Tomatoes. Black Adam trailer drops tomorrow. There's a Star Wars thing going on, I guess. So, that's hot. But, guys, lots going on this week. Tonight's show, yes, we're late. Thank you, Comic Kingpins. I guess, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, I guess. But we've got a little situation we got to work with. Our special guest, Mr. Nemesis Prime, Mr. Justin, he is on the Lords right now, so he's going to be joining us just a bit late. But that's okay, because pardon the interruption is usually two people. It's not three. So unless you remember back in the day when Tony Reality, who is on Around the Horn, used to be on the show back in the day, but you'd have to be watching the show for like 20 years to understand that. But anyway, let's bring in the man, the co-star of the Tuesday show. It is none other than Mr. Rocksteady. What's up, man?
This is why it's called Tuesday, not Threesday.
Ooh,
dad joke.
Shook. What's going on, man? Happy New Comic Book Day Eve. I know we talked about it on Sunday, but Miss Marvel, Black Adam trailer. I'm expecting every top 10 list and everybody to be talking about The Rock, Black Adam come tomorrow. I don't think people are going to be talking about Miss Marvel. I think it's going to be Black Adam. I think they did it on purpose, man.
I agree with you. I only think because people are going to watch Black Adam first. And then I think come the weekend, people are going to be, oh crap, this is pretty good with Miss Marvel.
Listen,
there's not much talk around it, to be honest with you. Of all the shows that have come out, remember like the what's his name in number 2, Fists of Khonshu, Moon Knight, Harrow, or whatever he is, like all the talk was around him going into that show. Yep. There's very little talk. Like Red Dagger is supposed to appear. We haven't seen anything, so it's interesting.
Yeah, I wonder if we're gonna see Frogman, Leap Man, Dude, Jump Guy thing, but
I hope that's what it is. The post-credit scene in the last episode.
It's just like Gribbit. Yeah. What was that? But yeah, so guys, today's show, we're gonna be doing it pardon the interruption style. If you're not familiar, I'll give you a few seconds to go on, YouTube and kind of understand. But if you're into sports, Mike Wilbon, Tony Kornheiser, they put on a great show. I've been watching them since I was grade 8, so I probably was like 14, so 20 years watching them do the show. I love it. When I talked to Justin and when I talked to Greg about it, doing a Whatnot show and having that style of show, they agreed. They jumped on and said, yeah, let's do it. So I'm pretty pleased. However, like I said, Justin is on the Lords right now, so he's going to be joining us just a bit late, which means me and Rocksteady are just going to, rock it out. And we're going to be touching on a lot of subjects when it comes to Whatnot, because it has been a game changer. It has changed the market, which basically is the same thing. I've been very vocal about, sales prior to everybody just being able to sell on it. How my sales have gone down on eBay, Facebook, Instagram, Craigslist, or Kijiji if you're in Canada, right? So it has changed a few things. American to Canadian to American buying, like that stuff's changed. So it's got its positives, it's got its negatives, it's got its neutrals, right? And Greg, I think we've kind of seen all three highs as well, right? We've gone to the high, we've seen a little bit of the low, then we came back to the middle, and then we're just kind of swimming and floating around, right?
It's a roller coaster, and I think we're just understanding it more and where its place is in the market and actually how Whatnot is evolving too. I think it's super interesting.
Yeah. Can I ask you before we start the show, 5 years from now, because, in every job opportunity, in every job interview I've ever been, a lot of people will say, hey, where do you see yourself in 5 years, right? A lot of bank institutions, a lot of professors, teachers, just whatever. Everybody wants to know your 5-year plan. And I think it's kind of hard to do it in nowadays than it was maybe like 25 years ago, where now it's like, hey, where do you see yourself in 2 years? But 2 or 5 years from now, where do you see Whatnot?
I think it's evolving into like a home shopping network for different categories, and multiple people can be on at the same time.
Right.
So I do see a place for it. I also see competition coming in, and I see it becoming more of a show rather than a garage sale or flea market type deal. So I think the quality is going to go up. I think YouTube is going to get in the mix. Yeah, and I see it around in 5 years. I don't see it as much of a comic community thing, but for card breaking, it's going to be king.
Yeah, and you know what? It's not just cards, right? It's cards, it's pops, it's action figures. There's that Canadian guy that we've talked about that sells chips and chocolate bars to the Americans, and those chips are like $1 or $2, and he's selling them for like $20. So if you want to talk about dirty flippers, there's a dirty chipper, I guess. That's what we're gonna call him, because he's making way more bank than any comic person I know. The guy is literally making like $1,000 off fucking chips. It's insane. It's
so when you go to the store and they're sold out of ketchup chips, you go on there and you spam his chat.
Yeah. Listen, if anybody's looking for ketchup, all dressed, I don't know what flavors do you guys not have? What chocolate bars don't you have? Let me know. There's a dollar store around the corner from me. I will buy it. I will sell it to you. I legit. So you let me know. But the guy is selling like 3 chocolate bars, 2 bags of chips for like $55, and it literally costs him like $6. It's like just insane to me. So Coffee
But
Chris,
it shows
okay,
where
perfect.
it's moving,
Hey,
right?
I will sell you 10 of them for $1,000.
Deal.
That's a steal, man. That's a steal.
Where else are you gonna go?
So it is true.
But I think it just shows how they're moving away from collectibles, because when it was first advertised, it was a collectible marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
And now I see a lot more clothes and purses and sneakers. So I think the collectible market is not their biggest priority anymore.
You know what? And a lot of people in the chat might say something when I say this, but I've said this to, BC, Face, Keys, Hyper, Brandon, you. I've said it to Peter, who's in the chat. I've said it to Sith. I've said it to a lot of people where I said, and don't unsubscribe. Don't stop watching the show. But, I've said it where, like, comics is, if you look at it on a pie graph, like, it is pretty small compared to other ones, right? Like other collectibles, like sneakers, cards, pop,
manga, like
it's bigger than comics, right?
It's our world, but it's not the world.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people who are in our world are like, no, it's comics, and it's like it's not though. Like it's not. So I know girls who will buy pops at
Pokemon
work.
Cards.
All the girls, they're like older ladies or middle age, whatever, young. They all have a pop on their desk. Why? Because it's a pop, it's cool, it's whatever. But they don't care. But you would never see a comic book on there. You know what I mean? Like they just don't know. Like they get them. So like it's just one of those things. You have to look at the marketability and things. And you also see it when there's a toy show or there's a card show. Like it's way more crazy than a comic show. It really is. Like that Mississauga show that I went to 3 weeks ago, legit. It's always paired up with a toy show, and the toy show is always A, more expensive, and B, way more packed. Like the comic show is $5 to get in. That toy show is $25 to get in. That says something, man. Like, believe it or not, that says something. So
ask your LCS and ask them what percentage of their sales are like trading card games like Pokemon or Magic versus comics. I think it would surprise you.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's say hello to the chat and then let's get the show going. Pardon the interruption / newbieverse. So let's get it going. Let's say hello to the chat. And let's get it going, man. Cause I've been looking forward to this show for a while. Again,
you've been excited.
This is gonna be a little bit like, yeah, dude. It's just been one of those things, man. I was talking about it to this guy at work today, at the printer, and he just didn't care whatsoever. He's like, "What are you doing tonight?" Oh man, because they all know I do like a show and stuff, and I was like, "Oh man, like I got this show, and part of the interruption, and da 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 da," and like I was so hyped and pumped, and he's like, Cool, man. Yeah, I got to go see my kid's soccer game. I was like, oh, okay. Like, just didn't care. So let's say hello. First up, Newbie Comics gold medal. Canada is taking home a medal. Yes. Dan Delatorre is actually taking home the gold medal. But what's going on, Dan? How you doing, brother? Mr. Michael Baker. All right, guys, hold on. Okay. All right. He's ready. Is he ready? Okay. All right, guys. Special guest, probably the biggest Star Wars fan in the world. Special guest, Mr. Justin. What's going on, man?
Hey, how's it going, Rocksteady? Thanks for letting me be on your channel. Who's your guest?
Yeah, do you know Newbie?
I don't know. I don't really know him too well. I know you really well. I love your channel. This is such a great honor to be on your channel here on a Tuesday
Justin's
night.
gonna be that guy that is looking for barbecue chips or ketchup chips in a few weeks, and I'm gonna have the hookup, but I'm gonna, upcharge.
Just be aware that all the comics you get from Newbie from now on will have ketchup chip stains on them.
Well, they usually don't come with bags or boards, so
Ketchup bags.
Somebody messaged me the other day about that. They're like, "Oh, do you really just sell like with no bags?" I'm like, "No, no." But what's going on, man? Welcome to the Newbieverse. This is the first time here, man.
Yeah, finally. You've only been on my podcast a few times over the past 6.5, 7 months.
Yeah,
Thanks for finally having me on here.
I'm trying to beat Gabe for like the ultimate like all-time record on your podcast. So yeah. But yeah, man, you were on the Lords of the Long Box not too long ago, a few minutes ago, and now you're here. So yeah, repping. I have my sweater in my other room. If not, I would have wore it. But yeah, pardon the interruption, man. We were just saying hello to the chat, and then we're getting right into this, man. I was just telling everybody I've been pumped to do this, and yeah, not familiar with Justin or what he does. The Comiccon Podcast and his Instagram are below in the description, so make sure you guys go follow. Again, Star Wars related, this is your guy. So if you have any questions, private message him, because we can't do a Star Wars show tonight. But yeah, let's say hello and then let's rock in, man. Nowhere Bounds in the house, TKO, a fellow few Canadians in here, Hernani, Comics Chic, Peter's in the house. A lot of people I'm seeing in the chat are going to be at that Toronto show in 2.5 weeks. So it's going to be pretty good, man. Actual Dracula, DNA. And I hope everybody knows what Parting the Eruption is, man. Because when I asked Justin about it, I was like, do you know who Parting the Eruption is? He's like, of course, man. What's wrong with you? TKO again. So yeah, Uncanny Swag, RP, Car, AOA's in here. Uncanny Swag again. Uncanny Swag Dan. So yeah, Chad's in here. Whatnot is built for people with a shit ton of books to move. All right, we'll get into that. Don't worry. Mr. Empire. I'm seeing a lot of people who are on Whatnot as well. So that's good. And also, I think it's important to note we've got 3 different angles here. So Justin, very successful on Whatnot. Really good. He's always trying to give me hints and advice on it. Also an American. Newbie, Rocksteady, Canadian. So we're also going to be talking about.
That's why we're on the top of the screen.
Perfect.
Geographic.
But we're going to be talking about that because it has become an issue, right? Where Canadian sellers aren't getting as much American, and sometimes vice versa, just because of the shipping and all that. So we are going to be talking about that. So with that said, ESPN is going to sue. That's okay, man. That's okay.
Monetized? I hope not.
Yeah. So it is what it is, man. North 49's in here. So all right, let's get it going. You guys ready? So 3 minute or 2 minute on the timer, each subject. Justin, you're the special guest, so you're gonna have the privilege to go first. All right. That's how we do it. I will start the timer when I say go. So just a few subject headers that we will be talking about today. So again, Canada versus US, shipping Canada versus US, bookmarks, too many sellers. Is that a problem? Buyer's paradise, right? We're all seeing a lot of people lately just going buy and then resell on eBay. Cancel requests. Yes, it is freaking annoying. YouTube and Instagram auctions. What has Whatnot done to those? And Whatnot versus eBay, Facebook, and Instagram sales. Also, market changes and what's the future for Whatnot. So We are going to talk about Canada versus US and just the the differences within both. And again, it's better that we have Justin here because he is an American and he's really successful at it. So, Justin, are you ready?
Yeah.
All right, man. First up, 2 minutes on the timer. Canada versus US. Go.
So I think the whole thing with Canada versus US is definitely an issue for some. Of course, you have comic shops that are probably littered all over the USA. I don't know how Canada is, but you figure us here in the States, that's right. I'm in the United States. It's interesting because of the fact that there's so many comic shops, so we have so much to pick through as far as being a buyer, being a seller, that's always the one good thing. And I like that I can go ahead and I can go and shop at stores, buy stuff, and hopefully sell to other people across the country. And it's interesting because I'm in the East Coast, I'm in New Jersey. So typically when I run my sales, there's a lot of times where I have like a certain clientele that are really not so much on the West Coast, right? Because of the time difference.
Right.
And I figure with Canada, it's a little bit of the same thing, right? Because if you start on one time, you're going to get certain people on the other side of the world or the other side of Canada. I haven't seen too many international stuff, but I think Whatnot has a perfect opportunity, especially you're the pioneer, right? Aren't you the pioneer for this Whatnot
for
stuff?
Canada? Yeah, for Canada. It's crazy, man.
So
I'm gonna tell my grandkids one day. They're not gonna believe me, but
I know you need to be the face for whatnot.ca. So so regarding that, I think the Whatnot community is growing, and I think both Canadians and Americans need to appreciate both sides. I stop into your shows, I buy stuff. Yeah, it is what it is for as far as shipping, and I don't know if there's any issues. I can't imagine someone being like, well, what do I do now that I got this book with no bag and no board? Do I have to return it to the guy up in Canada, or do I just put in a new bag and board for myself?
I think that was a freebie that I threw in with no bag and board. I think, but it did come in a bag. It did come in a bag.
It's the 30 cents they take off each comic.
I think you got to have that as a buy it now in your own listings. If you want a new bag and board, click on buy it now.
That'd be good. All right. Rocksteady, you're on the timer, man. Canada versus US when it comes to Whatnot.
I think we have to look at it almost as two separate markets. I think Canadians are going to shop in Canada, and for the most part, Americans are going to shop within the States, especially if you're selling low dollar books. I think once you get involved with that shipping, it just doesn't make sense for it to cross the border, especially with time and everything like that it takes to get there. So the issue for me was they had a huge rollout in the States. They're at cons. I remember when it first started, they were giving away PlayStations and people's whatnots. And I think the advertising was very geared towards the States. And for Canada, they were very much like, oh, might as well. They've been asking for it. And I don't think there was a proper rollout. So I think we kind of started at a disadvantage where the hype beast was behind the States and we were kind of an afterthought. And when people saw the differences and a little bit of the excitement was over, we were kind of starting from scratch again.
It's true. I mean, I really think that that's the one thing that has really hurt us as in like Canadian buyers, is the fact that Justin, big time name, right? Mel V, Bolo. I'm trying to think of other ones.
Spider-Man booth is just pumping out books,
Spider-Man booth, right?
that,
like
right?
they've done so much for them, and I can see a lot of the Canadian people kind of getting upset. I just don't think that there's, and again, like I said, I just don't think that comics in Canada, we don't have those big time names. Like we don't. We literally don't. You look at the US and there's a lot. You got Tim Tebow, Mel V, Justin, Zach. You got Very Gary, Pressable Defects. Like you go to places and they know it, right? In Canada, you ask these people and they're like, I don't know who Newbie is. Who's Newbie? And I'm like, I'm Newbie. Like the shirt says Newbie. What do you mean?
But people don't even know what Whatnot is in Canada.
Exactly, and that's another thing, right?
Because I remember I went to a show. Look at it this way too, like everything, like Unknown Comics, Comic Mint, even the artists. A lot of these artists are even having their own Whatnot page. So it's, I don't know. Is there anything in Canada? Like, is there any companies in Canada that have a Whatnot account? I don't know.
No. I remember I sold at that one show with Ozzy in March, and I actually had, just before I was going live on Whatnot, I literally had a sign with my, hey, go follow me on whatnot. And everybody that came to the booth was like, what is that? And I was like, it's like a selling app. And they, like, a lot of people didn't know. So it is what it is, man. It's got to grow. And I think it will, especially if it wants to, sustain the, international success, right? Like, you can't go away from Canada not doing anything and then try to build in England, Australia, China, like all these markets that they want to sell in. So we'll see. All right. I think I'm going to switch it up. I think I'm going to give us 5 minutes on each topic, and we're just going to butt in, because I feel like people just want to see like no, you're wrong and you're wrong. So I think that's what we're going to do. I think we're going to put 5 minutes on the timer.
Cool.
Justin, I'll give you first word, but let's do this, man. All right. Canada shipping versus US. Your shipping, when I look at a book that you are selling a slab, it's $41 US for me to buy a slab from you. You guys see the same thing, right? And I think raw books for me, when I look at you, it's $14 US. Mm-hmm. When I sell to a Canadian, it's $11.50. But then right after, it's $1 per book, right? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you think it hurts? Again, this is 3 different, takes, because you've been very successful at it. So I think that it's good that we're getting, ups and downs here.
Yeah. So that's crazy that it's $41 to ship stuff like that, like a slab. The thing is, if you're in there and you look at the seller's books, you got to get more than one book. That's at the end of the day, right? Typically what I do, especially with my, Canadian guys that I have a good following and I know they're in the chat, I typically try to do like certain buy it nows at like, I'll do like a single book for $5, and I'll be like, hey, there's a couple guys, Mike and Cloud Walker, those guys, I'm like, hey, I got to buy it now for $5. So they'll go ahead and buy that $5 book, and they'll already then, maybe whatever, it's going to be like it's going to be $11 to ship that book, right? Because it's only a single book. So then they know going forward that the next books are going to be cheaper because it already starts that combined shipping. So that kind of helps. And that's something that for Canadian sellers, it's a good way to get people, and vice versa. People are like, oh, it's so expensive to ship. But you know what? Here's the way how to do it. Put in a cheap book, let them buy it. And then, of course, they're going to get that book, and then they could start buying more stuff, because I do pack up a lot of stuff going to Canada. I would say I have at least like 2 to 3 guys who are constantly, and I appreciate, the Canadians coming into my shows, and, I stop into your shows and when I can and purchase some stuff that I like. So it's, if you can't afford the book and shipping, maybe you really shouldn't be on the platform like to buy, right? If it's a book you want to support the community, especially the comic book community, newbie, you started, you're still new at this. You're not like, going twice a week or every week or every day, who knows? But, you got to start somewhere. People got to get your name out there.
Exactly. Greg, you've kind of seen the high right off the bat, and then you kind of went down, similar to me, right? Like my early shows, and I've only done 7 of them, were really good. And then, you kind of fizz out a little bit, but you've kind of done the wave, and you were kind of like almost on the way out, right?
Yeah, it has been a wild ride. I think the biggest issue is I had these hopes and dreams that I'd be able to go find these $5 books in bins and be able to sell them for $20 to $30 and do it en masse, right?
Yeah.
And my big concern was going to be, will I have enough inventory to sustain it? But what I found is nobody wants to pay $14 for shipping for a $10 book.
Yeah.
Where I've seen people really fail on that shipping front is people who don't list the descriptions of the books for their upcoming auctions. Because as a buyer, you want to look ahead and make sure it's worth your while. You're not going to just buy one book. So you want to be able to look ahead and make sure there's 5 or 6 books that you're interested before you commit to that shipping. Another big thing with Canada is we don't have local pickup yet. Yeah. So that kind of takes all those little LCS auctions that are normally happening on Instagram or Facebook totally out of the equation on there. So you're completely committed to shipping either way. So when you're looking at a slab and it's $41 to $44 US to ship it across the border, at what point is it worth that shipping? Nobody has a problem paying $44 shipping on a $1,000 book. Yeah. If you're moving a $100 book, not likely. $200 book, $300 book, like where's that line? Yeah. So I think if you're going to have those shipping prices, you need to make it worth their while, either by having those premium books or by having a lot that they want. So I've found success in having sales of the same genre. So if you attract X-Men collectors, they're more likely to buy more than one X-Men book, so they're more than likely to commit to shipping. Whereas if you have an X-Men book, then a Philadelphia book, then a Kanto, then a Star Wars, you're not capturing one audience, and people are less likely to bite.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. That's the thing too. I think that it's important, and Greg, you've kind of mentioned this, and so did Justin, but like making sure that you have all your products in the store. So then that way, when people do buy one book, they don't get, kind of turned off by the shipping. They can kind of see like, oh, okay, they're going to have another book that I want. So I'm definitely going to stick around. But it's also like inviting those people to basically, buy early, and you got to show off, right? Because when I first started, I legit would build my way up, right? Like I didn't put like the best book, like the hotter books or the ones that everybody wanted up front. I, like you, Greg, man, I'm gonna sell this $1 book for $5, right? Like that's just kind of how I thought. So we'll see.
Well, your $5 books aren't going to sell at the beginning because nobody wants to commit to that shipping. So if you put expensive books first and you get a lot of buyers right off the hop, people are going to be like, well, it's just $5 now, as opposed to it's $15 or $20 for that $5 book.
Yeah.
So I used to think too, you build up, but I think you throw some fire at the beginning, and then you kind of meander through and have some more fire at the end.
Yeah. Speaking of the show, right? Because it is a production, it is entertainment as well, right? But bookmarks and giveaways, guys. Justin, you've been very successful at doing these giveaways. Bookmarks, I mean, we see it across the board, right? People are like, hey, go follow me, go bookmark me. And I think that sometimes people get like, oh, I got 20 bookmarks or I got 100 bookmarks, and that's awesome. But now people are starting to use it. I think Skeef was the originator of it, but he was like, hey, if I get to 100 bookmarks, I'm going to put this book up. Or if I get to 200, I'm going to put this book as a giveaway, right? We're seeing more and more of that. Do you think that bookmarks and that is more... That's the way it's going to go? Like people are going to be more in tune to go to those shows than just say somebody who's just like, hey, this is all I'm selling, I'm not giving away this stuff.
So it's tough because I don't know how the algorithm works for Whatnot to become like a featured show. Because if you obviously can go and say like recommended shows, I don't know how that works. Because there's times where I follow some people and they have a ton of bookmarks for like a specific show, a specific time, and they're not on like the featured list, right? It's random shows. Bookmarks definitely help. It just, I guess it builds your confidence. It makes you feel better. I have 1,400 followers, and sometimes I get 20, 30, 40 bookmarks, and I'm like, like the ratio isn't there. But that's okay. Like I'm not looking for that, because of course even Whatnot pushes your live show. As soon as you go live, just because you're not bookmarked doesn't mean that Whatnot's not going to push it to say newbie who didn't bookmark my show or may not even follow me right now. It's still going to send out. Like, obviously, I don't know if like, and other people out here, you get live shows all the time. It's like, hey, they're doing vinyl records. Hey, they're doing video games. So there's so much stuff. The giveaways thing is perfect because I love doing giveaways. It obviously gets you more followers as far as a seller, and it makes people feel good. Like I love going into, whether it's it could be like a $5 book, a $10 book. Some people do, what is it called? Like, they'll do like milestone shows where like when I hit 1,000 followers, I did an all giveaway show. I did 15 giveaways, 2 slabs, and they were good books. Like some of them were like $10 books, some were $30 books, some were like mini series, like a 1 to 5 mini series set. Like I said, slabs. And I think at the end of the day after, and I just looked at it recently, I gave away 15 items. I was in the hole for $78. So like instead of like a positive, it showed negative $78.
Yeah.
So that's what I owed to Whatnot, which is, I'll take a $78 loss. I ended up gaining, I think, like 100 followers, and it's also fun. It keeps, as long as you can talk, it's a lot of fun to just engage with the chat, and people always come back. Like I said, I have about 1,400. When I hit 1,500, I'm going to do another all giveaway show as well.
I'm going to do the same when I get to 400. I think I'm at like 320. I think I might have lost 3 just because like I didn't really do anything the last like 2 weeks, just working too much. But yeah, I see what you mean. And
-1 for sure.
Minus two right here.
I see a lot of the bigger guys who have like big numbers. That's what they do, right? Like Comic Man Andy, like he is another great example of it, right? Like he just gives away good stuff. And again, it's not to say like if you don't give away stuff, it's bad. It's just like that's kind of where we're going, right? Where like you see it more and more now. So we kind of know the deal, right? It's a copycat league in sports, in life, in fashion, and food. It's just whatever's hot and whatever works, people are going to copycat it and they're going to do it, right? Until the next person comes and does like, I'm going to jump out of a building and throw, all these books, like that's just how we are, right? So it's just interesting to see where whatnot was like, say 2 months ago to where it is now, right? With these bookmarks. I know for a fact that when I do a show and I'm like, oh man, I only have like 20 book or, 15, 20 bookmarks. I'm like, shoot. And I feel stupid because I'm like, should I really put these books up, right? Like I'm like, maybe I shouldn't put this book. Where some people, like you said, Justin, just because you're not bookmarked doesn't mean people aren't going to come, right? Like there's tons of people that come on my shows and I don't know them or they don't follow me or I don't follow them. It's just the show pops up, right?
Bookmarks are non-followers, in my opinion, for the most part, because you get that notification, right? If they're already following. So these are people who have scrolled through and either seen your picture or your description or whatever little video you have there and said, oh, that looks interesting. I'm a potential follower, if that makes sense. But the way the algorithm works, what I've seen, is those who have the most bookmarks move to the front, all the way to the left of the list. So not the people with the most followers. So it's really interesting how that all shakes out. So bookmarks, I think, are very dependent on how well you advertise in the one picture or video and your description. And that's a good way to get new followers. As far as giveaways go, quick question. If you cover the cost for a giveaway and then they buy something on the same show, do they have to pay shipping again?
It's less. They automatically get the reduced shipping price.
Okay, so that's pretty good. So if you give away a bunch of stuff to a bunch of followers, then you might have a chance at a lot more buyers if you do it towards the beginning of the show. And if you advertise that you're going to be doing it right at the beginning of the show, you might get a lot more people on and move to the front of the list. I think giveaways are basically an investment into marketing. Those are your dollars spent to get followers. And that's the way you have to look at it. I think it works out well for people. But I think they also have to remember that you are covering the cost. So don't just be grateful for the book. It's even more than that. Yeah. It's like that free comic book day thing where people just start grabbing everything. Yeah. And whoa, there's a cost to those,
Yep, it's true. All right, let's get into the meat and bones because this is a subject that has been really rampant probably the last 2 weeks on Whatnot. And we can all attest to this because we see it. But too many fucking sellers. Now, that's a good thing. That's a bad thing. There's a mix, right? There's a lot of people with good books, and there's just a lot of people that are just like, here's a book, timer set, go, right? And there's like no communication. It's not fun. And that's where like me and Greg even said, where we're like, oh man, like we can go onto these shows and pick these books up for nothing. And we've also seen and talked to people that like do that, go to these shows, buy it for nothing, and then flip it on eBay or flip it on their shows. And it's just crazy. But Justin, too many sellers lately, right? Not just in Canada. I know in Canada there's just everybody and anybody, but like, what is your thought? Too many sellers compared to when you started kind of thing?
So I agree. There's definitely a lot of sellers. But the thing is, so I think as of now, the comic book side or category is only a year old.
Yeah.
The app was created in like 2019 and it was all like cards and Funko Pops. And the comic stuff just started last year. So yes, it's ramping up very fast. And I think that is a little bit of an issue. But at the same time, how many people are in the comic book community that are buyers, right? Typically there's between YouTube auctions, Instagram sales, eBay. Obviously, all you got to do is just download the app and you can be anywhere, right? Yeah. As far as like you said, there's too many sellers and, there's books and, you may think to, buy a book and then try to flip it. Here it is. If you have a book that goes for $500 on eBay and you don't want to start it at $20 or $1, start it where you feel comfortable, right? Like start at a half GPA. Start it somewhere where you feel comfortable, because you know what? Even if you sell it for, again, if it sells for 500 on eBay and you started at 250 or 300 and that's all it goes for, it's a win for the buyer and it's a win for you. If you're comfortable, you know what you're into the book for, right? Because if you buy a book, come on, newbie, you buy books for probably like $1, send them to CGC, and then they come back 9/8. Like, realistically, like, what are you really sad if the book went for like $100 less than eBay?
And Justin, we've talked about this, right? We've talked about the knowing your profit, knowing, and I've touched on this many times with a lot of people where I say, because I get asked all the time about like spec and like, should I keep it, hold, and I go, you have to remember why you bought that book. So I bought book A because that's going to lead me to book B, right? But then, you get that, I call it the Stockholm syndrome, like the kidnapper stuff, where like you buy it and then like when it's time to sell, you're like, but you have to remember why you sold it, right? And again, we've talked about that where like you have to be comfortable selling it at a certain point. I'm not comfortable selling a $500 book on Whatnot for like $100. Now, if somebody offered me $350, $375, I'd consider it, especially if that's what it's going for and I know what I'm in the book for, right? We also got to remember too, Whatnot is a good way to like, okay, you've got the slab, it's going for $400, it's going for $300, but you've had it on your eBay for like 2 years now. So are you going to still keep it for another year or two at $300, or do you want to let it go for 160, 180, right? And that's, I think, where a lot of people struggle with it.
Yeah, like Swag said, like only one person sells at the high and only one person sells at the low, right? There's only one person there. There's a lot of people in between, and don't get greedy and just remember and stay on track. So for too many sellers, I actually don't think there's too many sellers, believe it or not. Right now, there's just a lot of genres. So I think the comic books are really getting, I don't know, I don't want to say backseat to a lot of other genres. But I think the app, it's going to do its own job vetting sellers, because I see new people come on who are wide-eyed and they just get destroyed in their first auction, and they're going to get turned off of that, right? Mm-hmm. I've also seen Whatnot bullies, where these guys come in and just buy every big book from a new seller, and all the other stuff they don't even touch, and nobody wants to commit to the shipping on it as well. So I think it's becoming a place, like I said, more like a home shopping network than a flea market or garage sale. And people are looking for quality product, and the quality product and the mass are what are going to set people apart. And I worry about space for people like us and how they're going to do it. But I don't think there's too many sellers. I just think they have the wrong sellers, and it's really settling itself out, and people are going to back out themselves.
Yeah, it's true. I think it's going to hurt a few people. But again, like Justin, right? Justin, you, and I just think of like you, Mel V, Very Gary, like you guys just have like a comic book Andy, Skeef, like there's just a different market for you guys because you guys just have so much bulk, and you guys have been collecting the hot book like 5 years ago, 3 years ago, right? Yeah. Like, so when people are jumping on it now, you're like, wow, I was picking this up for like $1 and it's going for like 100. So you're okay letting it go for 40, $50 because you're in the plus, right? Where there's a lot of people coming into it, buying the book at 40 and trying to get 50, and they're only getting 45. So they're like, oh man, that was a waste, right? So I think that's a big part of it as well. Now, as much as we have too many sellers, the other argument could be said, buyer's paradise. Justin, we've talked about it a little bit. Greg and I have talked about it a little bit, but a lot of people lately, I'd say probably in the last 2-3 weeks, and a lot of groups I've been a part of, chats that I've been a part of, a lot of people are kind of in that mindset, like, hey, wait a minute, there's these shows that don't have anybody in it. They're selling these books at $1. I'm gonna buy it and then resell it, right? And I think that can lead down a negative path. And unfortunately, we do have negative people. But at the same time, if you're willing to sell a book for $1 and you're okay with it, you're happy, the person's happy. Don't get mad if that person kind of resells it, right? But it is in some shows a buyer's paradise, right?
Yeah, Whatnot's awesome. When my first book I ever bought on Whatnot was like a Star Wars variant, and I got it for so cheap, and I was just like, oh my god, I can't believe I just bought this for, I don't know, it was like $25. It goes for eBay, triple that, right? But that's for everybody out there who's watching us live or watching us on the rewind. Like, that's what it is. You're happy, we're happy. Like, I don't mind selling a book for cheaper than what it's going for, because I know what I'm into the book for. I'm gonna make money. Buyers,
Yeah.
if you're getting a great deal, you're getting a great deal, right? I mean, that's really all I have to say for that. I mean, buyer's paradise is the greatest thing for Whatnot right now.
Oh, 100%. I think if people wanted to pay fair market or like pay eBay prices, why wouldn't they just go on eBay and hit buy it now?
Yeah.
Right? So if you're in the market for a book and you're, say, a Miss Marvel collector and you need Miss Marvel 14, the odds of you being on that show at that time, needing that book, are pretty low. So what I find is people are going on there, and it's more, instead of Whatnot, it's more like, why not at that price? I'll grab, oh crap, that's only going for that much? I'll grab that too. And I don't think people are looking to pay eBay prices. So as a seller, you cannot expect those prices whatsoever, because you do have to think about, why would they buy off you instead of when they can, when they want? Why wait?
Yeah, it's perfect, because even like for myself, like as a buyer, like I know my limits on certain books. Like you obviously, that's what they're obviously as a buyer, you should know what the limits are on a certain book. I not recently, probably 3 or 4 months ago, I purchased on one guy's auction. He had Clone Wars 1 to 12. Yes, 1 to 12. I got it for $700, and I almost had it at $500, but someone decided to bid at like 0.001 seconds, and then it was between me and him. No, it wasn't you. It was going back and forth, and the guy ended, and like I was like, I'm tapping out at like 700, and I was just like, final bid in my head. I'm like, final bid, and the guy didn't bid anymore, and I was just like, oh my god, I have Clone Wars 1 to 12 for $700, and I already have like the series, but it was a steal because I know what the books go for, like graded. Like I could grade the issue 1 and easily make $1,000 on it. So
yeah, why not instead of Whatnot?
There's
you
a
don't
lot
go
of
in there with a plan. It's like going garage sailing, where you don't know what you're going to find, but you're going to take advantage if you do.
Yep.
Justin, do you find, and I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but there are a few people that know this, right? And I'm not bashing anybody by all means. I am not bashing. I just have to use a name. But Very Gary, for example, right? And even when he did his YouTube stuff, his YouTube sales, like people would just go crazy to buy books from him. And do you think that for some sellers, and maybe it happens to you, but do you think it's more of like, oh my God, I have this book that Justin owns, so like, like, do you think that comes into it as well? Because there are some people that do overpay for a few books, right? And it's just like, okay, do you really, really want that book? Because like on eBay, it's cheaper, right? So like, do you see that happening? Because I know, like I said, for Very Gary, I see some of the sales he does, and all, great guy. He talked to me early on in my YouTube career and stuff like that. But like a lot of people, I think, just want to have the book because of like where it's coming from, right? Do you see that? Do you find that or no?
I don't think it's that. I think it's just the big dick syndrome, because if you have the book and Greg and I are going back and forth bidding on it, it's like, I don't want to lose this bid for $1. But now, Whatnot's changed it where after a certain amount, it changes to like $2 and $3 and $5 and $10. Like I saw they sent out an email about this. So it's different because but Gary has like a huge following on Instagram, huge following on YouTube. So he's going to get a lot of people hit to his, Whatnot. Same thing with you. Like, I don't know, what do you have, like 400 subscribers here on YouTube?
400?
Oh my god. I'm joking. But see, like, you have it great because you have, YouTubers, I think, have a perfect opportunity because you're constantly promoting your Whatnot. Like, I think everybody who watches your video should be subscribed to you. So
I think so too. I really do.
I don't have a YouTube channel anymore. Like we do the podcast. The podcast is on like podcast platforms like Spotify, iTunes, stuff like that. Yes, I'm on Lords of the Long Box, and yes, I have an Instagram, but like not everybody follows me, right? But,
and they should. They should.
If you can get 1,000 views, why are your 1,000 views not also representing to you to Whatnot? Like Gary has, I don't know, over 10K on YouTube, and this is just guesstimating. 10K on YouTube. Why doesn't he have 10K on Whatnot?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think it's a little bit of that big dick syndrome, but I also think there's a level of trust with someone like you or someone like Mel, where it is what it is. You're not going to overhype a book, and people can see a track record too. So I think there's part of that as well.
Shut the fuck up. Oh man. All right. This one, I think all three of us have been a part of. And I know for me, it was annoying because I had one, like my first show, and I was like, this motherfucker. But it's annoying. Cancel requests. And yes, just like eBay, right? No returns, but you can still get a return. It is annoying, but for a lot of us, especially in Canada, talking to a lot of Canadians, they've kind of gone this route where, they get a guy who buys one book, then they're like, oh, I didn't know you were in Canada, even though the show has like 17 Canadian flags on it. Like, I know I put like 10 Canadian flags so everybody knows, hey, I'm in Canada, not just throwing
I put American flags.
random flag. But like, we do get those canceled because, again, going back to that shipping cost, right? And it is annoying. But the way Whatnot does it, I think is kind of funny because like they'll send you an email like, hey, Rocksteady wants to cancel, and then Rocksteady can put a message like, hey man, sorry, my kid was like, rolling around my
I thought
laptop,
it included the bag and board,
and then he clicked it, and now I'm here. Even though I was in the chat talking to you, I didn't notice I won, and then it's like, other people were bidding on it, and that's the annoying part because you could have sold the book. Like, I know there's a book in my like Whatnot box that like was at $13, and then this person bid at 14, won it, and then he like canceled it, and I'm like, motherfucker, like I could have sold it for 13. So it is annoying. But what are your thoughts on this, the cancel request, right?
Luckily, I've not fallen down this hole too much. I think I've only ever gotten like 2 cancels, and I've been selling for just under a year now. It is annoying, I guess, but like you said, if you have the book, well, the good thing is if you are buying it, right? If the person's buying it and they're like, "Oh, can I cancel this?" and they put it in the chat, or like you kind of maybe see it on your phone if it
Yeah.
pops up, you can then just like add it in and then like resell it, which I've done before. And then, of course, at the end of the show, once the show's over, I'll go into my computer, I'll hit cancel because obviously the money doesn't transact immediately on Whatnot. So, yeah, I don't know. That's kind of annoying. Like, I know CBSI Ben, Mellow Fellow, like he does those Whatnot exclusives, like the Star Wars stuff. And like he's saying that, like, he'll have all these exclusives drops and like people will be buying them. And then his very next show, he'll be like, yeah, he's like, I had a bunch of people cancel on me. And I'm just like, it's like exclusive, it's limited. Like, you took it out of other people's hands. Like, why did you cancel it? Like, what is the reason for that? And especially, and even like these littler books, like, why are you canceling books? Like, you're on it, you're literally clicking it. The only thing I could see is if you do sudden death and you hit it at like the last second, and then like 20 people are already bidding, and then it completely jumps the price, and you're like, "Ooh, damn, I didn't want to spend like $100 on like a $50 book," right?
Yeah.
That's the only thing I could see is like an issue. But that's the game that you play for sudden death. It's the same thing like on eBay. You do max bid or you click bid at the end.
I think there's 2 ways they could fix this. I think for a cancel request, they should charge like $2 or something. So if they charge $2, people will second guess because then you have a stake in the game, and maybe that $2 should go to the seller, and they just take it off the refund that goes back to them, almost like an NSF fee that a bank would have. I think the other way is that a cancel request should be in by the end of the stream. That way, if somebody cancels, you can still put the book up with the same viewers and you can talk about it then. Or there's maybe a more extreme fee, like a $5 fee if you don't cancel by the end of the show. But I do think it's people are lazy or aren't checking the shipping or just log on right away and get super excited. I've only had one person cancel, and is that because, or maybe 2 people cancel? That's because they committed to a $5 book at the beginning. They lost out on the other books they didn't want throughout the show because it got too expensive for them. And then they decided, oh, I don't want to pay that shipping for the one book. But that's kind of a jerk move, right? So I think if you get that little bit of a fee to cancel a request, I think it would make all the difference.
You know, it's interesting that you say that because there's been a lot of chatter with like people having suggestions or things that could work out, right? Like, hey, you know, try this, because again, Whatnot for Comics is a new thing, right? And I think that that could be something that if like enough people back it up, that Whatnot would be like, you know what, this is a good idea, because they have made changes to a lot of things that people were like requesting, right? So, you know, like I know, Justin, we were talking about like people being able to come into a chat, so like you're not talking to yourself.
They have the direct messaging now.
Yeah, direct messaging. So like they are taking suggestions. So I think, you know, if there was enough people that were like, hey man, this is kind of annoying. I just think it's annoying when, you know that there was other buyers and then you want it, and then it's like, oh man, come on. So that's the only game, you know, weird part of the game that I don't like. The other part that is very interesting is YouTube, Instagram or YouTube and Instagram auctions. Now, Justin, I know you started, you know, we talked because you're like, you know what, I think I'm gonna like try something on Instagram, and you actually like had success with it like a few months ago when we were chatting. But it has kind of changed the way people do auctions now, whether it be on YouTube or Instagram now, because I don't get, like, there's people out there that are still like, oh, well, I like the security of like the YouTube or Instagram, but like really there is no security. Like, you don't know if the book's been shipped. You're just, you know, like if I wanted to turn and be a fucking asshole and I knew that I was going to Mars tomorrow, yeah, I'm selling these books, I'll ship it tomorrow. Like, you're trusting me. Yeah, you're trusting newbie, right? But with Whatnot, I mean, you literally have to ship the book within a certain time frame. It's scanned, you know when it's coming in. Some people, unless you're over 1,000 sales, you don't get your money until the book is shipped. But regardless, you can get a full refund if the book never gets to you anyway, right? So I don't understand that logic. I do trust the system, but it has changed the game for YouTubers who basically their whole YouTube was auctions. Same with Instagram, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100% agree. I came from, obviously, being on Lords of the Long Box. We used to do one YouTube auction every quarter. And last year's, and we always do one on Black Friday, right? Friday, you know, day after Thanksgiving. And last year was the first year that we did a Black Friday auction where we actually saw the full effect of, you know, the dip from what we saw in 2021 to 2020, even with COVID in 2020. Like, there was tons of people there, 2019, 2018. Last year, you could just see the numbers. You're like, wow, we used to hold like, I don't know, hundreds of people, and we were like just steadily like half of that for the entire night. Yeah, people were coming in, people were buying, people were getting good deals, and things were going for good money, but it just wasn't there. Like, the back and forth, like the constant bidding wasn't there. And I feel like a lot of the YouTubers like NY Warriors, like those guys have been doing auctions forever. Sands Group Collectibles, what the hell's his other name? There's like one other guy that I can't think of that he does auctions all the time as well. But like, I've seen it. Gary used to do Gary still does auctions, so but he still gets both, because obviously some people don't want to go to Whatnot. Myself, I did an Instagram, I did like a live sale. People do those. It's definitely changed, right? I always hated the Instagram sales because the fact that like I can't go on my phone and look at a price. I have to like go on my computer while the Instagram live is going. Like, at least with Whatnot, you can kind of minimize it, check eBay, check GPA, and do all that stuff on your phone. That's my 2 cents on the YouTube and Instagrammers.
I think the payment method through Whatnot, is a lot more comfortable for people. You know what you're getting. You can argue it if you want to, if it's not as shipped or anything like that. I think there's a place for both, and you kind of go where your followers are. And everybody has a different niche. There's going to be a niche that's always going to be on YouTube. There's a niche that's always going to be on Instagram. And if you think about Whatnot versus those two platforms, Whatnot is 1/millionth of what Instagram is. It's 1/millionth of what YouTube is. So, and Whatnot is just a baby compared to them, right? So in the future, it could totally level out. But yeah, I think there's a spot for all three of those, and you need competition. You need the different platforms.
Do you think, and I'm seeing the chats, right? Like the one thing that I'm seeing, and maybe you guys can see it too, is like no selling fees. And I totally get that. But again, there are a lot of scammers, right? Like, I think there's one pretty big name out there that, you know, kind of scammed. He's not on YouTube anymore. A lot of people like are trying to go after him. I don't know if they've been successful. But like there are shady people, right? That's just the nature of our species. There's fucking shady people out there, right? That's where I like Whatnot system, but I get the no fees. It's just I don't know, if you really want the book cheap enough, I mean, you're gonna have to pay a little price, I think, right? Like, and it's still relatively cheaper than getting eBay, 100%.
If you want no
Or you can
fees,
look
you're
at it
gonna have
like-
to set up at a shop, like, or set up at a show. Like that's
Yeah.
your no fees. Sell it in person. That's really the only way to do it.
YouTube sales take the most trust on both sides. No direct messaging on YouTube. Have to trust a follow-up email from both sides. Yeah. And Swag's done YouTube sales, right? And he's a very trustworthy guy. And he's got a big following. So yeah, for some people it worked, but it is surprising and alarming that, like, you know, and Justin, I know you've talked about it before, but like, and I think maybe a lot of us have thought about it, but there was a time, I think maybe like all of 2021, where literally everybody was a YouTube auction show. Like there was just so much, man, and it was
Everybody
just
was
like,
locked in.
holy crap! Like go to my auction, like it was just crazy. So,
But I also think if you have 10 followers on YouTube, good luck selling a single book. If you have 10 followers on Whatnot, you might still be able to sell books.
it's true.
Right? So I think there's a difference there too if you're entering the game.
It's true. All right. Well, sticking kind of with, you know, Whatnot versus the world. What about Whatnot versus eBay, Facebook, Craigslist, Instagram in the terms of sales, right? Now, we're all sellers. We're all flippers. If somebody wants to call me a dirty flipper, by all means, I really don't care. Cool. I just want to invite you to my birthday party. That's just kind of how it works.
Dirty
But,
and a flipper.
yeah,
That's
dirty and a
different
flipper.
things.
But and I've talked about this with BC, and I've talked about it with a few people. It has changed the game in the sense of like where people sell, right? So like my eBay sales are like historically right now like at an all-time low, and I do think that it has a lot to do with like a lot of Whatnot sellers and a lot of people just being like, well, man, I've had these conversations with people because when I posted some slabs up for sale on my Instagram, people were like, well, dude, I just bought this on Whatnot for like half the price, and it's like, all right, you know, like I can't argue it. One, because there's no like proof of the show, right? Or the sale, but like it has done that to a lot of books, right? Same with the auctions. Like, man, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I just picked up a sweet Fantastic Four book that if you go look on their site, on my comic shop or on eBay, it's going for X amount of dollars. I literally got it for under $20, and it was because all I did was wait 7 days for the auction, right? Like sometimes you just have to be patient, but there are places where you can make a deal. I'm just finding that like my sales on any other platform have really gone down, and I haven't changed anything that I've done. I've literally sold, advertised, shown like 10 pictures of the book, everything, every, you know, nick and cranny, I've showed it, and it's still a little bit different, man. Like, Justin, are you finding that?
Yeah, last year, probably from May, June, to probably like the end of August, even September, like my eBay was just, I was done. Like I had tons of stuff, like you said, like I had like 40 books listed, CGC, raw stuff, sets, lots, whatever you want to name it. I just couldn't sell stuff. And then finally, like last year, when I got approved to be a seller, like I was just moving stuff constantly. And like it was just amazing the fact that I can do this in one day, like 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever I want to do a show for. And I'm just moving this product. Like, and even now, like eBay, I sell a little bit, but I sell stuff like that's more higher end. And that's really where the difference is. Do I sell the higher end stuff on Whatnot, or do I sell it on eBay? I have no problem listing a book on eBay and then also listing it on my show at a lesser price so people can compare what's going for on eBay, and then maybe even taking a best offer, right, on Whatnot. Yes, those fees are just a little bit less, but still, if the book's not moving on your eBay, and Greg said this earlier, like there's how many people are on your Whatnot stream? Let's call it, maybe there's like 20, 30 people.
Yeah.
Multiply that of how many people are looking at your one item on eBay. Because you could see that. You could see your views. And even if they don't click on it, they're at least seeing it. Like if they search this item and scroll down,
Yeah.
they're still seeing that item.
So I'm gonna put my retail hat on and talk the difference between like intentional buyers and impulsive buyers. So if you have something rare, there's not many of, there's not a ton on, the market isn't flooded, people are going to buy it on eBay because, like you said, the odds on and everything like that. Whereas Whatnot, yeah, it's all impulsive for the most part, unless they see something way ahead of time. But you can move volume there. I think Facebook and Instagram are a little bit different in the States versus here, because in Facebook and Instagram, you can do local pickup. And I think for those local shows, the $5-10 shows, you can make bank on Facebook, or maybe not bank, but you can move a lot of volume on Facebook or Instagram, where we can't do that on Whatnot or eBay right now. But yeah, I definitely think there's like a place for both, right? Where yeah, my eBay is actually popping, but it's intentional buyers. And like Justin was saying, you have more eyes in a bigger marketplace, but it's hard to browse eBay for something you don't know about. Like there's stuff you know, and then there's stuff you don't know, and it's all over the place. So yeah, you're browsing versus intentionally buying.
Have you guys, and Justin touched on it, but like Greg, maybe you're better suited to say this, but like I know me personally, I've taken like a lot of the bigger books like off, like where I was like, you know what, maybe I'll put it up, and then I'm like, why would I even put it up, right? Like because it also comes down to like time, right? Like Whatnot. Justin, what have you told me flat out? Don't ever go on a Wednesday, because Wednesday there's, just like the big people, like the big names. So it's like, okay, so that's like the one evening I have to myself. Saturday and Friday, you're kind of playing, a coin flip with like a lot of people, even like Empire Comics and like, Tropical, or I think it's Tropical. He's from Orlando. Yeah, he's gonna kill me if he watches this. I told him he was gonna be on the show in the newbie verse at one point, but like they do morning shows, right? And even Empire said in the chat early in the show, he's like, I started doing morning shows at 10 a.m. I was like, maybe I had to compete between 1 and 2 other people, and now he's competing at like 8 in the morning, 9 in the morning, 10 in the morning, and he's competing with like 15 to 20 people, right? So
yep. There's guys that are on here on the East Coast. Like there's a guy, Comic Don. He's a great guy. He goes at 7 a.m. at Eastern. Like literally, I'm waking up and I'm like brushing my teeth or having breakfast, and I'm like, hey, what's he got? Or like there's a couple guys that go on at like 8, 9 o'clock in the morning while I'm driving to work, or I'm sitting in the office. And it's just like, okay. But here's the thing and that's the one thing for me as a seller, and I know I'm saying this like because I have more followers than you guys, but like you shouldn't be afraid to go against anybody. Like let's call it, like Gary's a great guy. I've known Gary for many, many years. Am I afraid to go against him? No, because maybe what I'm selling is different than what he's selling. Like if he's selling like high-end slabs and you don't want to buy expensive books, you want to come buy like cheap books, come to me. You shouldn't be afraid to go against someone that's big.
Yeah, I think we're talking different leagues, right? And you have to look at it that way, because the people who are buying off me aren't the people buying 5 books at $1,000 on Whatnot.
They could be. So, they could be.
Yeah, if I had that many books. But you know what I mean, though? Like, I think there's different scales of store. Like, there's the Nordstroms, and there's the Macy's, and then there's the Sears, right?
And the dollar.
So I do think there's different niches for different people. I've had my best sales were Saturday mornings, where we were doing that Canadian breakfast brunch, having a theme, going back to back. And Saturday mornings were good. People are cleaning. They're not doing much. Yeah, so I think it's, especially for Canadians, when people are browsing through the shows, it's very easy for us to fall back if we don't have that big following.
Yeah. And marketing is a very important part. And I'm learning that from Justin, right? It's marketing as much as like, you know what, tomorrow I got an hour, I could do it. Like sometimes it's not the best idea to be like, you know what, I'm just going to do a show, right? Yeah. Like you do have to put in some time and kind of make it, for people to like see, oh, this guy's doing something, right? And like, what's he got? So we'll see. I am going to be doing a show in like a few days, so we'll just see it. All right. The biggest thing about Whatnot, it's got to be the market, right? The market is changing. It's different now. Books aren't selling as much. Books aren't selling for a certain price. The biggest thing I see, how do you know that GPA is where the book is, right? So I kind of talked about it, Justin, where it's like, okay, let's take your Clone Wars, right? It's selling for $1,000 and you got 1 to 12 for 700. So there's got to be eventually a way where the rest of the world could be like, oh, wait a minute, like one just sold for, 1 to 12 sold for 700. So that's got to bring down the prices and kind of elevate, right? Like, I feel like that's a big issue with it from the market and the number side, that like you don't necessarily like when someone's like, oh, look at GPA, look at the last eBay sale. You could easily be like, look at the last whatnot sale, but there's no proof, right? Unless you're the guy and it's like, no, look at my credit card statement. I bought the book for 100. It's selling for 500, like things like that. Do you see that changing, or those whatnot numbers kind of coming into play with like GPA, eBay, and all that stuff?
No, because it's always like who's in your stream. Like if people want the book, like people are going to pay for the book, right? Like, yeah, I could put up one of my Clone Wars copies and it's going to go for probably close to what it should go for. And if it doesn't, it's not going to go for it's never going to be like what Greg said earlier. You're never going to have the top sale. You're never going to have the lowest sale. It's going to be somewhere in between.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I don't think the market changes. Like I know Cover Price has added a few sales from whatnot. They had that UF4 variant that Frankie's Comics sold.
Yes.
35,000 or something.
Yeah. I know that like that became like that because I was on our Shakers show, and so they had that. But do I think going forward like that's a good thing? No, because there's no way to actually have an algorithm like how Cover Price does. They're taking it from many different auction sites to get those numbers. Like there's no way the way like that, all three of us, we could literally all list the same exact book all differently, right?
Yeah.
And that's what it is. Like, I could do a Tales of Suspense 39, spell it wrong, and someone could get it. Someone could get it for a good price.
Oh man. Oh fuck. Greg, what are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I think there's too many variables. Like if this is an experiment, there's no control on whatnot. That would be like incorporating if I found that Clone Wars one for $1 at a garage sale. Does that still count? There's just no eyes on it. So I think if you take those stable marketplaces where all the variables or most of the variables are taken out, like eBay, where you're going to have the same views and like on a search, you're going to get the same results, you, me, or whoever. Yeah, so I don't think it's affecting the market as it is. But yeah, I think people aren't going to pay eBay prices on whatnot. And I think that's the big difference, where people were expecting that as sellers. And you have to understand there's two different markets. So I don't think it's going to affect either market, just two different ones completely.
So you guys don't see, like you don't, okay. I guess it depends on like how long we think that, on one side you could take the cliche like, hey, all good things must come to an end, right? As much as people like, hearing about Star Wars, eventually it's like, all right, like the newbie verse has to stop. Like we got to go to sleep, we got to go to work, we got to eat, we got to do things, right? But I don't know. Like I guess it goes to the next point, right? Like what's the future for it? But I don't know. Eventually, I think if they want to be known and have that, like that, what's the word I'm looking for? Like you have to add these numbers in eventually at some point, right? Because it is affecting it. Like if I find a Tales of Suspense on whatnot and buy it for $5,000, that changes the whole market of, the next guy. Like if you, Justin, were going after Tales of Suspense 39 and you're like, well, wait a minute, why am I spending $10,000? And the guy's saying like, well, it sold for $10,000, and then you could be like, whoa, newbie just picked one up for $5,000. Like it changes the game, and that's kind of where I was going with it. Where like, does it hurt books? You know what I mean? Like, would it hurt books eventually if the whatnot numbers actually did come out?
I don't know. It's still such an infant, right?
Yeah.
We're only 1 year in for comics. Look at eBay. eBay's been around for 20 years plus, so it's a completely different animal.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, I mean, we got 10 seconds before the timer goes off, but let's get into the biggest thing, and perfect way to kind of like end this segment. I'm sure maybe Justin will want to add a few things prior, because I know he was looking forward to this show. He's like, don't start the show without me. But guys, and Greg, I kind of talked to you about it just before Justin came on, right? We were talking backstage about it, but what is the future of Whatnot? And Justin, I won't even hesitate, man. You go. You got first word, man.
Future of Whatnot is just more people getting to know it. Like Greg said, they're in Canada, not a lot of people know what Whatnot is, and I think that's the biggest thing is that you just need to market everywhere. You need to market it on Instagram. Obviously, like this year and really the end of last year, Whatnot is going to conventions. You know, they're making these big booths. They had this huge booth at MegaCon. Like they need that's obviously how you market yourself. Like it's rememberable. Look at how many thousands of people go to conventions. Like now the conventions are back in, full swing. They're going to be at these big shows. They're going to make sure people are downloading the app. Imagine just MegaCon itself had the, tens of thousands of people, New York Comic Con, San Diego Comic Con. Imagine if everybody that walked through that door downloaded the app. But they don't need to be a seller, but they're a buyer. So it just goes to show you that the future can be maybe again, right now, books aren't going what they're supposed to be going or what you want them to go for. Maybe in a couple of years, it'll be completely different, right?
Do you think it also, just before Greg kind of puts in his 2 cents, but like, even in the chat, they kind of got a little like out of, whack, and they were talking about gas prices, right? But we got like inflation, right? And we talk numbers all the time, guys. It doesn't have to be comics, but like, comics essentially is investing. So we're number guys too. So inflation, gas, everything being up, recession looming. If you don't think there's a recession going on, I don't know what to tell you. There is. It's looming, right? So a lot of these factors, a lot of people are still not at their like normal job from like COVID. Yes, we're getting things have opened and the world seems to be at, what it was, but like a lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of places aren't operating with the same amount, right? So like that also kind of takes, precedent with, books not selling, right? Like there's a lot of books where I'm like, how is this book not selling? Like even books that aren't even mine. I'm like, how is this book not selling? Like a few months ago, a few years ago, as early as like maybe a year and a half ago, this thing would have sold like out of the park. Now it's not, right? So that's another thing too, right? Where there's all these variables where people aren't necessarily putting their money in comics. Are you finding that? Because the card people are kind of gone, right? Like that surge of like comic people coming in and buying up our cheap big grails because they were like, well, wait a minute, a big card is like millions of dollars, while the big key in comics is like just thousands, right? So we did have a lot of that, but that's kind of stopped. And do you think that's also like another market change that could affect things?
I think the whole comic market is finally correcting itself. I think last year books were just going crazy for no reason whatsoever. Like 9/8 on any book just because whatever it was. It didn't, whether it's a first appearance or a key. I don't know. I guess people just had money in like 2020 and 2021. Yeah. Now things are going down, but that's good because that's the comic market correcting itself. Yes, with inflation and the gas prices, so people aren't buying as much. I mean, I'm still selling, right? People are still buying, and people, you know, uh, real quick, even Bernard, Justin, is Whatnot worth its time, or is it just hopes and dreams? It's definitely worth your time. You can't get discouraged. I mean, hell, like luckily my first 3 shows, and this is completely changing. My first 3 shows, 2 out of my first 3 shows was with me and my local comic shop. So, we saw books that were going for good money, and then there were some books that didn't sell. I have sales right now that sometimes books just don't go, and I'm just like, okay, put it back in the box. It'll be for next week or the week after, like whatever it is. Again, and still the future of Whatnot is more people need to just get on board, and the comic book market will just correct itself to where it's back to us. Like, yeah, there's the blue chips books, there's the low end books, and there's the people that can't afford those like high end. Like, you're never going to see an Amazing Fantasy 15 go up on Whatnot. I don't care what anybody says.
Challenge accepted.
All right.
Not the reprint.
All right, here we go. All right. I mean, granted, like I get it. Like Frankie's did like that UF4 variant, and they had hundreds and hundreds of people on there. But that's like a one and done thing. Like they promoted it so much, Whatnot promoted it. That's what it is. Like, sure. Again, well, actually, I should say that. I should take that back because that's what it'll be. Someone will throw it up, but someone will have Whatnot even market it and be like, Amazing Fantasy 15 CGC 1.8. See what happens.
Well, the app is certainly evolving. It started off as like a collector's paradise, and now
It's
I'm
still
starting to
beta.
see. Yeah, still beta. It's like purses now. It's food, like we said. It's sneakers. It's everything, and it's your marketplace is your home shopping network where you can just tune into the channel on the home shopping network that you want to look at. But I do think it's going to evolve where they're not going to care about the people selling $100 during a show or $200 a show because they only make $10 or $20 off that and all that platform and space on there. It's the people who are selling one Gucci bag for $1,400 and they get 140 of it. Like that's way more than the one show we're doing. So I think it's going to be changing. It's going to become more of a cash cow. I think the big guys are going to get bigger, and it's going to become like, if you watch the Home Shopping Network, they're selling ShamWows that they have 3,000 of. They're not selling grandma's knitted napkins that you have 8 of, right? So I think it's going to push the lower guys out, but I think the bigger guys are going to get bigger as it evolves.
Yeah, but again, it also goes, like, and I give props to Justin because I know how he collects and I know how long he's been collecting and what he's been stacking. And I know other people who are successful on it have been stacking. So again, it just goes back to my comment, right? Like Justin was picking up books that are $50 now. He was picking it up for $1 and he was picking like hundreds of them up because
but that's speculation versus flipping,
exactly.
Right?
But that's the thing, right? Where again, now we're getting these new people and they're getting discouraged because they're buying it at $50 right now and expecting to make 100. And it's like, but that's not how the game works, right? And I think that's just where the issue is because that's where the people are getting angry. I'm okay. Like a lot of the books I put up are books that are like it's spec or it's failed spec, or even if it's a high-end book, I'm in Justin's shoes. I paid like $1 to $2 for the book. So if it goes for 50, great. If it goes for 10, it's still in the profit. And I think that's what you have to remember is why did you buy the book? Do you still want the book? And is profit still good enough for you? For me, profit is profit. So,
but any of the crap is coming from the sellers, not the buyers, right? Yeah. From what I hear. So it's unsuccessful or people where it didn't live up to what they thought it was going to be on the selling end. But sellers are just a fraction of that platform. Like you have to remember, like 90% or more are probably just buyers and not selling on there.
But here's the thing too: how many sellers do their one show and then they never do it again, or they do a few shows and they never do it again? So realistically, like that's a great analytics statistic to see is like how many active sellers there are, how many total sellers there are, even in each category, and look at it. Like take 100 comic book sellers. How many of them actively do a sale once a week, and how many of them just don't? They did one 6 months ago, and that was it. They're like, I'll just stick to eBay, right? How many people are like that?
No.
I haven't done one in 2 weeks, and I'm gonna. It's just I've been so busy, man. Like it is, that's just the thing. I keep getting overtime so I can go to all these shows, man. Like Terrificon's around the corner. It's literally around the corner. So just getting ready. Just quickly before, we say our goodbyes, Justin, I know you were, kind of digging this show and stuff. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you maybe just wanted to kind of, touch base on with Whatnot?
Oh, you put me on the spot. Yeah, I mean, as a new seller, don't get discouraged. That's the biggest thing. If you want to sell a book, sell it for what you're comfortable at. Start it what you're comfortable at. This past week I had a show and I had a Moon Girl Devil Dinosaur #1. It came back a CGC 9.6. I was into the book for $100. So $100 plus $25, $30 to grade. They were only going for $140 on eBay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the book looked clean enough where I thought it was a 9.8, didn't need a press. I don't know the issue, but so my minimum was, at least 100. I was at least selling. I was going to start at least $100. Like there was no way that I was going for less. I'm not going to start at 25 or 50. That's where I was comfortable with. Even if it was sold on a one bid win, fine. At least I got some of my money back. But yeah, there's just so much.
It also balances out though, don't you think? Like we've had that conversation, and I know Greg has too, where like, okay, this book that I thought was going to go for 10 goes for 2, but then a book that I thought was going to go for 2 goes for 25. So it kind of like,
it's always a fluctuating market. And again, it's always, who's bidding, how many people are hanging out with you. My biggest thing and biggest pet peeve of any Whatnot, and I will immediately go into your stream and immediately leave your stream, is when, like, Greg said, if you just put lot A, B, C, D, E,
Ugh.
F, G, or a lot. Because like you said, there's no reason. I'm not going to stick around because I don't know what you have. I'm sorry. Like, you don't have a preview. Like, that's the thing is, like, once someone starts, I can't see your preview anymore. And I'm not going to be like, well, do you have Star Wars books? Do you have Spider-Gwen? Do you have Batman? Do you have this? Do you have that? No, I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm not going to hang out in your stream. That's great it's good and bad. It's good because people can get good deals, but it's bad because, like, I just don't care. I'm not going to hang around with you. I want a specific book. I want to be able to hit the reminder button. I want to be able to pre-bid in an item. Sorry.
Greg, what are your thoughts, man? Just quickly before we go, is there any, subject or anything, whatnot related that you kind of want to get off your chest?
Well, not even off my chest. I actually want to give them kudos. Their customer service compared to eBay, compared to anything, is absolutely outstanding. You send an email, you're getting a message back within the hour, whereas eBay is like, we'll get back to you in 72 hours. Then you get that email in 72 hours being like, it's under review and it can take up to 30 days. Yeah. So I want to give them kudos for that. I want to give them kudos for their vetting process for new sellers, even though you see some people go on and you're like, you're selling trash. Like, there's no way. The process and the education they give you, I feel, was very good. So as a platform, and they understand it takes two to tango. And it seems like they're willing to work with people and really kind of hold their hand along the way until they're ready to go. And I think that's a big difference. As a seller, it's appreciated.
Yeah. Well, like Justin said, my final words for, whatnot is, and I got this from Justin, don't get discouraged. Put a book for whatever you're comfortable with. Don't expect to be a millionaire. If it happens, great. But don't expect it on every show. A book is only worth as much as somebody wants to pay for it. And, there's other avenues and other ways people are comfortable, and it's still new. So again, don't get discouraged. I've seen a lot of Canadians. I can name you like a handful of people who I suggested. They went on, did one show, and they were shocked at it, and they have not returned. And it's simply, again, because they thought, hey, I'm going to get eBay prices plus more. And they never did, right? A $50 book went for $2 and they were pissed off. So you got to know your market. And again, it just goes back to, don't get discouraged, but you also got to know what you're putting out there, right? So it is what it is. Gents, I want to thank you guys for hopping on, man. This has been great. Justin, first time coming on. I did put your podcast and your Instagram down in the description below, but I always let our guests and people coming on, a little spotlight. So let the people know, where can they find you and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So Instagram, Nemesis_Prime, same name on Whatnot. And of course, every Friday, you can always find me on the Comiccon Podcast right there. We drop, it's a comic book podcast. We talk about, Newbie's been on it a few times. We talk comic books, we talk movies, we talk, community stuff. It's on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, and Anchor FM. It's a lot of fun. And even the big thing, and and Newbie knows this when he first got on, because we talked about this even before he was a seller. I said, listen, if you ever want to come on my show, like on Whatnot, you're more than welcome. Like, if you need, that's also a great thing, is like, you can have, another person on there. They can't sell anything, or they may not sell anything, but at least you could just have them on there, get them some followers, like be a part of the community, like get people to help you out. Like, I know Comic Enterprises, he just dropped the $19.99 super chat, bro. CE, he's awesome. He has a bunch of people that actually sell on his channel. So like, that's, they may not be sellers, or they may not have a following, but that's the best way to help out. So like, if, for myself, if someone wants to jump on and just kind of hang out with me and talk to me, it's a great time. Like, Newbie, I told you, come on, just jump on for 15 minutes. People get to know you, get you some followers, and that's how it goes going forward.
Yeah, and big shout outs to the Comic Enterprise, man. I've been following your shows since Justin kind of put me towards you. I follow you on Instagram and all that. So man, you're a good person. You always put out a lot of great stuff, man. And anytime Justin, post, I always set a reminder and bookmark and all that stuff, man. It's always nice. But humbled to get that super chat, man. Appreciate it so much. A lot of people saying great show. The show is just simply, successful just because it's just people talking about comics and they're passionate and it's natural. And anybody who's met me knows that this is how I am. I don't treat these as shows or I'm like bigger than anybody. I just treat these as like, hey, this is how I would be talking to these guys with my hands in the air, even though I'm not Italian. you know, I'd be talking like this even if I was at a bar with these guys, because it's just, you know,
You're not a
passion
legend.
time. So, but yeah, Justin, thank you so much for tuning in, man, and you know, hopping on. My grade 7 teacher, Miss Del Gobo, always used to say, "Good things come to those who wait." So I'm gonna be an hour late, and then years later, it was in a Kanye West song, and I was like, "Whoa!" So I always thought she was a time traveler, but in today's episode, you know, it's fitting. You know, you were late, you had your other show, but you made it in time, and I was, you know, I was happy to have you on, and you made the whole show. So thanks for tuning in. Like I said, Comiccon Podcast. You know, every week with him and Zach. It's a good show. Instagram, Star Wars, anything you want. This guy knows it. He's ahead of the game. So make sure you guys go follow him. And of course, Greg, not to leave you out, man, but where can the people find you?
Well, first off, I'd like to thank Justin for coming on my channel tonight.
Such a great time, Greg. Thank you so much.
Anytime. You can find me on Instagram, Rocksteady Collectibles. Rocksteady collects on whatnot because they limit the amount of characters you can have in your name. But this Sunday, you can find me at the Edmonton Collector Con. I will be setting up booth. Come say hi, come check it out, and come wheel and deal.
Yep. Speaking of shows, Justin, Terrificon's just around the corner. July 29th. Yep. Yours truly is still like 85% going. So as long as the border doesn't screw me over, I'm attending and planning to be there. So yeah. Bring like 6 shirts. That way we could take like different pictures. I'll, you know, do a picture with my beard, then I'll shave it. We could just, you know, bring up Christmas shirt too.
Yeah, I'll give you a list of what you need to bring to the show.
But yeah, fun.
We're gonna get you on the mechanical bull up at Mohegan Sun.
But fun show.
Flip flops.
Yeah, it's gonna be July, so I'm not gonna be in shoes. That's just stupid. Come on.
And bring a bathing suit because we're gonna hang by the pool and get drunk. So.
All right, cool, man. All right, chat, thank you so much. We had about 55, 58. I think at the max we had like 62. So thank you so much. If you're watching on the rewind or later or years down the road, appreciate you. Enjoy New Comic Book Day. Enjoy Miss Marvel, because I'm going to tell you one last time. That show is going to be dope. And Black Adam, I mean, Justin, I don't have to tell you, they probably, you know, prepped you already for next week's, you know, Lord show, but like, it's probably going to be Miss Marvel and Black Adam books 1 through 10. It's going to be crazy. Lots happening this week, so enjoy it.
And Frogman.
And Frogman. Any last words before we take off, guys?
Nope, that's it. Thanks, man.
Love
Appreciate
y'all.
you.
Thanks.
Yeah. Later, guys.